Hey, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air a little bit early tonight for coverage of a history-making mission, a medical evacuation off the International Space Station. That's going to begin in just a couple of minutes. We've got some pictures we have seen coming in thanks to NASA earlier. This is the SpaceX Dragon capsule. You're seeing some footage from earlier. It's set to undock from the International Space Station and start heading back to Earth, scheduled to splash down in the Pacific about 3:40 Eastern time tomorrow morning. So very late tonight, early tomorrow, depending which side of the country you live on. On board, the 4 members of Crew 11. You see them here. 2 Americans, 1 Japanese astronaut, and 1 Russian cosmonaut. Now, one of these 4, we don't know who, one of them has this medical issue that NASA says it just can't really get a handle on 250 miles above the surface of the Earth. So that's why they made the call. If you watched last week, you watched that unfold live on this show. They made the call last Thursday to bring them back a few weeks earlier than expected. Highly unusual. Hasn't happened in the agency's, in the space station's 25-year history. We're joined by former NASA astronaut Mike Massimino, as well as cosmologist and space author Paul Sutter. Stay tuned host and certified space geek Gotti Schwartz is also standing by. But I want to start with our Tom Costello. So, Tom, we are waiting for this live stream to come up from NASA. And I want to be clear, we're not calling this an emergency evacuation. This is, however, something that is serious enough that you have NASA saying, we got to bring them home to be able to diagnose this. Help us understand over the next 18 minutes here what we expect to see.
Well, listen, they left on August 2nd, right? So they've now been up there for 167 days in orbit. They were supposed to stay in orbit on the space station until February 20th. But last week, we heard the space-to-ground radio chatter between the Japanese astronaut who got on the radio down to Mission Control and said, can we have a video conference, number one? And then number two said, can we please speak with a flight surgeon? It was the next day, 24 hours later, that NASA announced they were bringing this crew home because of what they are describing as a serious medical issue, one that they did not want to see linger or persist on orbit, and that they really felt like that person, the astronaut in question, needed to be receive diagnostic help and treatment on the ground. So they're coming back almost a month early, 6 weeks early. You don't make those decisions. We'll let Mike speak to that, but you don't do that lightly. Clearly, they have a concern about somebody on board. They describe that astronaut as still stable, and they're not identifying, as you said, which one of the 4 is involved or what the actual issue is. But nonetheless, we do expect now that NASA will come back up in a few minutes. They closed the hatch officially at 3:29 Eastern time today, and then they are supposed to be undocking at 5:05 Eastern time. These are the, let me just mention why you got the graphic up. So we got 2 Americans on that graphic. You
Tom,
can see Zena Cardman is down below.
This is the live feed coming in from NASA. It looks like they're rolling some sort of pre-roll video here. So just so folks know what you're seeing on screen.
Good. So anyway, these are the astronauts. Zena Cardman, bottom right. She is the commander of the SpaceX Crew mission, Crew 11. Next to her is Mike Fink. Now, he is the pilot on the SpaceX mission, but he took over as the station commander, space station commander. So then yesterday, he had to relinquish command, hand over command to a Russian on board. And then separately, you've got a separate Russian cosmonaut as well as a Japanese astronaut, and they're the ones who make up Crew 4. So they are all coming back. Again, we expect them to actually undock, push back sometime between 5 and 5:15, and then they would begin their deorbit burn. I believe it's set for 2:50 or so Eastern time in the morning, and then splashing down 3:41 Eastern time off the coast of California in the Pacific. And when they do that, they will be obviously immediately picked up by the surface ship, and then a chopper will bring them ashore, and then onto, or a plane, we believe, will take them on to Houston. And in the 5 a.m. hour, if you want to stay up that late, we expect NASA will, in fact, provide an update with Jared Isaacman, the new chief of NASA, giving us an update.
I just want to interrupt you super quickly. They're speaking out. See if we have the audio.
Suits having performed leak checks. The hatch was closed a few hours ago between Endeavour and the International Space Station as we point to an undocking time of 4:20 p.m. Central Time, 2:20 p.m. Pacific Time.
Tom, I'm sorry to interrupt you on that. It looked like they were speaking. Maybe we were getting some different audio from there. We wanted to check on that. Tom, I'm going to ask you to stand by. I want to go to Mike here because, Mike, you were referenced by Tom. You have been on the space station a couple of times. We know you are the expert astronaut here. What is going through somebody's mind as they're beginning this undocking procedure? How long does this take? There's obviously a rigorous sort of schedule of things that they need to do before they get to the moment that we're about to watch unfold live in the next couple of minutes.
Well, they're following the checklist as closely as they can, in communication with the folks inside, because they have some steps as well. And of course, with the ground, with the Mission Control Center, and then eventually with SpaceX as well, once they get clear. So they're just counting down all the steps, making sure they don't miss anything, double checking everything, and getting ready to come home. But they're really focused right now on the checklist and the procedure.
And this is a big deal, as Tom alluded to. It is highly unusual for something like this to happen, for them to come home early.
Yeah, it's never happened before, Hallie. I was shocked when I heard it. You know, we're usually able to handle just about anything in space. Sometimes you trade off jobs if someone's not feeling well. Someone else will take their place on a spacewalk. Even that's happened. But to return a crew early is unusual. It's never happened before. I think a couple things come into play too in their decision. They've already been up there, as Tom said, for 5 months, so they're about a month short. But still, they got a lot of things done. And there's another crew almost ready to come up. They're scheduled to go up in about a month or so, and they may bring them up a little bit earlier. So operationally, the hit is, you know, a couple weeks of a reduced crew, and I think that probably factored into the decision as well.
Well, I want to note here that in this update, in this briefing that we're getting from some of the NASA officials, you're seeing it live here. We saw that live view of the crew a second ago. We have learned from NASA that the crew member with the medical issue has been stable. So that is obviously some good news here, as they are preparing to bring that crew member back. And we should note here, too, NASA officials have cited, of course, privacy concerns. They're not, you know, they're not saying who it is to be mysterious. There are obviously HIPAA rules and regulations that are in place to protect the privacy of the astronaut on board. We'll talk more about that in a second, but I want to bring in Dr. Sutter now. Dr. Sutter, what are the things that you're going to be watching for? So we're getting a live look now, and I want to confirm on the right side of your screen, that is a live shot of the NASA feed. So this is it. They're going through their procedure. You heard Mike, who knows a thing or two about the space shuttle, talk through the checklist here. Dr. Sutter, what's going to be the thing for you to confirm, okay, the undocking is going well, the undocking is going smoothly? What are you watching for?
Well, what I'm watching for is boredom. As long as all the NASA operators and engineers, as long as all the astronauts are smoothly moving through the checklist, as long as everything is green, as long as everything is nominal and everyone is low stress and low energy, the more boring this is, the better it is. Because the last place you want a high stress situation where things are going wrong and we have to rapidly troubleshoot is in a space station that is orbiting the Earth at 17,500 miles per hour. So as long as everything's boring, I am a happy scientist.
You know, it's not often that something that is boring is actually incredibly compelling. But in this instance, I think those two things are true, Dr. Sutter. Let me ask you to stand by because I want to bring in Gotti Schwartz. And just to update folks here, we saw the live shot away of the crew. They're suited up right now. They are going through that checklist, Gotti. We are just minutes away, we are told, from the space station and the undocking for that SpaceX capsule there. They've apparently done something like 2,600 orbits of the Earth in the time that Crew 11 has been on board the International Space Station, Gotti. And I know that you've done so much reporting here on the SpaceX capsule, on the space station as well.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason why I'm on this panel, I think, we've got an astrophysicist, we've got a former commander who's been on the ISS, we've got the legend when it comes to space journalism. I think I'm here because I've got the toys, and there's nothing boring about any of this for me. My office is filled with these toys. This is a Crew Dragon, or a replica of a Crew Dragon, and when we're talking about the Endeavour, if you're like, Endeavour sounds familiar, yeah, that's because this capsule that you're seeing is named after the space shuttle Endeavour because it was the first operational Crew Dragon to carry humans back in May of 2020 after the end of the shuttle program. Remember, the United States, we went dark when it comes to shuttling up people into space from the shuttle program into the SpaceX era. And as I understand it, this capsule that we're seeing right here, this is the first one to go up. It has gone up, I think, 6 times. If you were to check the odometer on this Crew Dragon, you would see millions and millions of miles. I mean, it spent something along the lines of like 800 or so plus days in space. It has ferried dozens of crew members up there safely. This thing is designed to hold about 7 7 people. Right now it's got 4 people, obviously, but it's got a lot of space on there, and these things are just becoming such workhorses. So not only are we going to see hopefully a perfect splashdown and this first of its kind medical evacuation, but we're going to see this space capsule be used and used again. It's very exciting times.
And talk about that capsule. Mike, let me go to you on this, because this is autonomous. It is not as though the crew members on board, the members of Crew 11, are going to be flying this thing.
Yeah, there's not even a control stick on that thing, Hallie. When they were designing this and they were talking about the different designs that we were looking at to replace the shuttle, especially a lot of my test pilot friends were a little concerned. There's a bunch of touch screens. So, yeah, it's pretty automated. The training involved is really shortened. The advantage of that is that it requires much less training. The space shuttle took years of training, especially for our pilots to fluid and land. It was no auto land. It was very manually controlled. Everything, the undocking that they're going to see today, all that was done manually with a pilot at the controls, our commander at the controls. This is more of a very automated. I wouldn't call it an amusement park ride, but it's highly automated. If there are some issues where the crew has to intervene, they'll be ready to do that. But you're absolutely right. It's a highly automated vehicle.
Which is just so interesting here. I should note that we are 7 minutes away here from the undocking. It appears to be on time. Then you are taking a live look. Obviously, you're seeing the images earlier coming in, and this is the live look here at the Johnson Space Center there in Texas. Obviously, an incredibly focused control room because, Paul, while, again, we are looking for this to go as expected, we are looking for nothing exciting to happen, they've got to be intently watching every nanosecond of this to make sure it unfolds as they want it to.
Exactly. This is an incredibly delicate procedure. Every undocking and return to Earth is delicate. There are innumerable steps that have to go exactly right. And in any little thing, surprising things can throw this entire procedure off. Like if the space station happens to be in sunlight at just the wrong angle for the wrong amount of time, then the docking latch, the metal on it might expand a little bit too much, and then the capsule won't be able to release from the space station safely. And so they have to wait for the metal to cool before they can do that. And then the entire descent procedure, orbiting the Earth, selecting the landing site, they have to go from 17,000 miles an hour to 15 miles an hour at the moment that it drops into the ocean. And they have to drop 200 miles, and they have to orbit the Earth and precisely pick that landing location. That's why a lot of this is automated nowadays, because computers, automated systems, they can monitor all of the sensors on board the spacecraft all at once. And the moment that, like you said, the nanosecond something goes wrong or is headed in a wrong direction, the computer, the automated system can respond instantly and much faster than a human can. This is to preserve human life. This is to make things safer, all so that we can do this efficiently and quickly and again and again.
It's a critical point, Paul. And as we take a look at the control room here, there's something else that has come up too from NASA. And Mike, I want to go to you on this because NASA keeps saying this is an orderly early return. And we want to be clear, they have not said it's an emergency. We know that it is a serious medical situation. What does the difference in semantics mean? And again, understanding there has never been an emergency evacuation for a medical reason from the space station. There hasn't even been this, which is obviously a level or a degree less than that.
Yeah, Hallie, it's a really good point. And a lot of our things that we would do in space had kind of two versions of ending it. One was like on an EVA, there was an abort EVA, which means we are coming inside. Someone's got a leak in their spacesuit. It doesn't matter what's going on out there. Just kind of let the equipment leave it where it is and get inside as soon as you can. Versus what we would call a terminate a spacewalk, which is, okay, we have an issue. We're stable, but we're going to come inside, but we're going to do an orderly shutdown, close things out, not risk the equipment or not rush too much. We're just going to, we're going to safe the payload bay or safe the work site and they were going to come in orderly in a terminate. And that's kind of what happened in this case. If this was a no-kidding emergency where it was
Right.
life-threatening, or even if it was going to be like a long-lasting medical issue, if they didn't get attention, they would have been on the ground right away. They could have brought him home last week immediately. In this case, it's like, okay, we've stabilized it. We're not going to rush. We're going to do a good closeout, get everything that we need on board the spaceship, whether that's all, their personal items, get all the science data, equipment that needed to come back, do a good handover, and make sure that the crew is ready to come back in an orderly fashion. So it seemed like in a lot of the things we did in space travel, we still do, of course, that there's two versions. One is no kidding, let's get out of here. And the other one is, okay, we're going to come home, but we're going to do it in a more orderly fashion.
And this is the latter, of course, Mike, is NASA has made clear. Yeah.
Yes.
We are, I should note here, it's just about to be 5:13 Eastern time. We are standing by now from Mission Control for what is called the go or no-go call. Once we get a go call, it's going to be just about 5 minutes or less to actually separate. So this is, they are on the precipice of determining that it should be a go. Tom, let me go to you about what goes into a call like that. They obviously want the conditions to be right. They want the crew to be ready. And there is this level, if not of emergency, of at least urgency to get this thing back to Earth.
Yeah, listen, I think I got to say, Mike is a great friend, and I respect him dearly, but I think it's a little more serious than just we're going to come down in an orderly fashion and everybody will be fine. Clearly, you heard the chief medical officer last week saying it's serious. We can't let this go on. We need this person on the ground. I think that it's quite serious. They need to get this person down. Now, we can all speculate about, okay, what type of thing is not an emergent situation, life-saving immediately in the ER versus something's developed and you don't want to wait at all. This needs to be addressed. And everybody has ideas and what have you. I would say, to answer your question, they are right now waiting on the go, no-go on undocking. That call is expected momentarily. And when it does, then the spaceship, the Dragon, will fire its Draco thrusters and back away from the space station. And when that happens, by the way, Mission Control Houston hands over to SpaceX Mission Control, I believe, is the way that all works out. I wanted to make a quick point about what happens on the space station, because that's going to leave just 3 people up there. That will leave Chris Williams, who is an astronaut from Potomac, Maryland. By the way, he has a Ph.D. in physics from MIT, and he is a board-certified medical physics expert dealing with cancer at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. So you had his medical knowledge on board the station when this whole happened. We had a change of command ceremony yesterday when Mike Fink handed over command to the Russian on board. That's that ceremony right there. He essentially said, do you accept command? And the Russian said, yes, I accept command. And behind them, you see everybody was back there clapping, including Zena Cardman, who was in the back with her ponytail up. And then,
hey, Tom, I got to interrupt you.
Yep.
Mission Control is telling us that it is saying now live that it is a go, which means the next 5 minutes we expect to see this undocking. I hate to interrupt you, pal, but let's listen in for just a second here to hear some of that.
Okay, Ronnie, thanks very much. The International Space Station is currently flying just off the southwest coast of Australia at an altitude of 260 statute miles. As you've indicated, the undocking command has been issued.
On the big loop, umbilical demate complete and nominal. Umbilical demate complete and nominal.
The hooks are beginning to drive. Again, 2 sets of hooks, 12 hooks in all. Once they're open, then Dragon will be free to begin its journey away from the Earth, from the space-facing port of the Harmony module of the International Space Station. There will be a series of burns. There will be 2 so-called undocking burns. The first will be 1.5 seconds in duration, the second 5 seconds in duration, followed by 2 so-called departure burns, one of 16 seconds in duration, the second of 22 seconds in duration. That will accelerate Dragon's rate of separation from the international outpost to a point in which it will exit the so-called keep-out sphere, and then ultimately the approach ellipsoid to begin the rest of its journey. Even though the undocking is coming about 15 minutes behind schedule, based on the work that was required to prepare the crew for undocking. This will not affect the rest of the timeline. There will be some burn adjustments made by the SpaceX engineers in Hawthorne, but it will all lead to a splashdown off the coast of San Diego for the 11 crew members
okay,
at
so you have been
2:41
listening now
a.m.
to
Central
these
Time,
NASA
12:41
sort of timelines, the minute by minute of what's expected to happen. So we know this is a go. We know now that Crew 11 is set to be beginning their return to Earth early from that mission because of this unknown medical situation that has happened on board with one of these 4 crew members. We don't know which. We know that in the next couple of minutes here, we're going to see 4 what they call burns, basically, departure burns, where there will be these moments as the SpaceX Dragon capsule undocks from the International Space Station and then begins that autonomous return back to Earth. And so, Mike Massimino, you have been on the International Space Station. You know what these moments are like. This is moment critical here. For the next, 10 hours or so, they're going to be kind of on their own, hanging out in this capsule, returning to Earth.
Yeah, and they're well prepared for it. The training involved is not as much as we had for the spacecraft as it was with the shuttle, but certainly they've had enough to know that this is they're going to be following a procedure. But it's almost like a simulation. It's kind of weird. You're so used to this, it seems very normal. Right now we're looking at this, and seeing what they're doing. But inside of that spaceship, they're just running through everything like they would in a simulation and ticking everything off, making sure that the spacecraft is holding pressure, that it's going to be controllable, that all the thrusters will be working, and that they'll have a successful reentry. So we'll see them separate here in a little bit, and then they'll be on their own little spaceship, and hopefully everything will continue to go well, and I expect it will.
Yeah, no kidding. At this point, we understand Mission Control pretty silent at the moment. They're standing by for some hooks to fully retract. We think it'll happen truly imminently any second here. And as we wait for that moment, maybe the next 30 seconds, minute, 2 minutes here, Paul, let me go to you because we should note there is from what NASA officials have said, Mike can speak to this too, there is a extensive suite of medical equipment that is on board the International Space Station. The astronauts have a degree of training on some of these, high-profile medical issues that could happen, and yet it is not entirely comprehensive the way that it would be. It's obviously not an operating room up there, right, like you would have here on Earth.
Exactly. We have to remember, even though the space station is only 250 miles above the surface of the Earth, it is humanity's most remote outpost. It is the most inaccessible place we have ever sent humans, and that's because of the speed of its orbit and the harshness of the conditions in space.
Okay,
so
Paul, I want to just interrupt you here.
Go ahead.
We think we're just about 15 seconds away. Let's listen in.
Dragon SpaceX, all hooks open. Nominal. SpaceX, all hooks open. Nominal.
Undocking confirmed. Endeavour begins its journey home with the Crew 11 crew. Undocking
Dragon
confirmed.
SpaceX, separation confirmed. Dragon SpaceX, separation confirmed.
A good undocking burn, 4:20 p.m. Central Time, 5:20 p.m. Eastern Time for undocking, as Dragon and the International Space Station flew 260 statute miles south of Australia.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Depart, burn 0 complete.
So we've had 3 good departure burns. The undocking burns 1 and 2, departure burn 0.
And that is the SpaceX Dragon capsule floating in space, having undocked from the International Space Station. Incredibly, we are watching it live happen as you're listening to Mission Control here. There's still one more departure burn to go.
The accelerated nature of the timing of this undocking for Crew 11, the crew has executed everything by the book as they begin about a 10.5-hour journey to a splashdown off the coast of San Diego in the wee hours Thursday morning.
Houston, station on 2. ISS thrusters are enabled. Houston copies.
That the voice of Chris Williams of NASA on board the station as we look inside Dragon over the shoulders of Zena Cardman and Mike Fink.
Those are the 2 American crew members on board the capsule.
We expect Dragon to exit the approach ellipsoid and for joint operations to conclude between Houston and Hawthorne in the neighborhood of about 4:40 p.m. Central, 5:40 p.m. Eastern Time.
An incredible moment there.
Coming up is
the capsule
Endeavour's departure and exit from the keep-out sphere, the first of these 2 boundaries that are used to essentially measure the neighborhood of the International Space Station during rendezvous and departure operations.
Mike Massimino, let me bring you into this conversation here as we're watching this. Again, just a live shot from space. It's unbelievable that we can see this happen, that we can watch this unfold. And you see those 2 American Crew 11 members there, including the woman who was in command of that crew, as they are making their way now back to Earth. And you can see the screens. Give us a sense of what these moments are like.
Again, yeah, they're intently watching what's going on, making sure that everything is behaving. The integrity of the spaceship is still there while they're still close by to do something about it, just in case. I think also in this case with these guys, they're with this crew, they stick together. Someone had a medical issue that shortened the mission, and I know them, and I know that they didn't say they weren't going to show their disappointment, but I think internally there's probably a little bit of disappointment, bittersweet. When it's time to come home from space, there's always kind of a mix of emotions. You're excited that you had a good mission. You're happy to be coming home and getting to see your family and your friends again, getting back to Earth. But
looks
also,
like
it's a bit of an ending.
Taking selfies, taking some pictures up there, huh?
Oh, I'm sure they are. I was trying to see. Mike Fink, Spanky is his nickname. He's a good friend of mine. I wanted to see what he had on his iPad.
And Mike Fink, Endeavour's commander and pilot, the 2 NASA astronauts.
That astronaut, Mike Fink, has a picture of his family maybe on his phone there. I'm going to ask our team to turn that audio down just a touch from NASA because, again, this mission is underway. The capsule has undocked from the International Space Station. Obviously, Mission Control. Explain this. I'm going to ask Tom Costello to do that. Explain this, Tom, because it sounds like Mission Control gets handed over now to what they call the Hawthorne team.
Yeah, that's right. You've been hearing the voice of Rob Navius, and those of us who cover NASA love Rob Navius, the voice of NASA. Nobody knows NASA more thoroughly, inside and out. He is a savant on all things Mission Control. So that's been the voice you've been listening to, and he will now hand over, and Mission Control will hand over to SpaceX because this is a SpaceX ship, of course, on its way down. So that's based in Hawthorne, California, of course, not far from our own Gotti Schwartz, splashing down. Again, the plan is at 3:41 a.m. Eastern Time, 12:41 on the Pacific Coast, right off of San Diego. And the one point I wanted to make, though, when we talk about the medical care that's available up on station, is that the astronauts, and again, Mike better equipped to talk about this than I am, but they do receive a degree of medical knowledge or training, I should say, that includes, I want to say more than an EMT, but maybe not quite paramedic level. They can start IV. They have drugs on board, they have an ultrasound, they have a defibrillator, they have a lot of equipment on board, and all of it, of course, would be ordered up by the medical officer on the ground. But in this case, they simply didn't feel like they had what they needed, and that's why they decided they needed to get this astronaut back on the ground.
Paul, let me go to you, because what does the handover then to the medical team back on Earth look like after, as Tom notes, they're set to land or set to splash down in the Pacific, 3:41 Eastern, and then the process unfolds from there?
Yeah, the medical team is in constant communication with the flight controllers, with the mission commanders, with the astronauts themselves. They're constantly in the loop, informing every decision, providing status updates. Once the crew hopefully safely reaches the Earth and they bring that capsule back on the ship, there will be surgeons and medical professionals on board the ship. They will be some of the first people to make human contact with these astronauts. They are going to proceed as swiftly as possible, just like if you were visiting an emergency room or an ER. They are going to take over with that ill astronaut, whatever the underlying issue is. They will be in charge of that astronaut. That will override all other priorities.
Gotti, let me go to you. You are our certified space geek, our resident space nerd man, and watching this, I know it's incredible, and it's meaningful too for this moment that is making history in the scope of the International Space Station, what it does, and setting the table for the future.
Yeah, I mean, watching these images, it's this slow motion ballet in space, seeing human ingenuity at its finest when you listen to that handoff of the command of the International Space Station. One thing that kept coming up over and over between all of these different countries, Japan up there, Russia up there, United States, was that this crew felt like family. Zena talking about how, she was surprised at how quickly the family came together and how they all came together to help one another with whatever happens. There are a few things that are obvious to anybody that's been watching this very, very carefully when we're talking about what kind of medical situation this is. It does look like both the Americans that are coming home today, they're able to move around freely. A lot of people are watching how their eyes look, whether or not this might be an eye issue, whether it might be some sort of physical issue that is visually apparent on some of the feeds that we've seen from them. And again, we just don't know right now, but I gotta say, I've never been up into space, so Mike can definitely talk more about this, but they're coming down to Earth's gravity, and Earth's gravity, as I understand it, hurts when you've been up into space for 5 months. When you go up, the human body has a really hard time for the first day to 3 days, as I understand it. That's when there's that space adaptive syndrome that like 70% of astronauts get, and that's where most astronauts, they get nauseous, they've got headaches, but then for the rest of the remainder of their mission, it's usually pretty great until they come down. Then you've got bone density issues, muscle atrophy, vision impairment. We just did a story about that study about how the brain shifts in its position in the skull. So there's so much that these astronauts are going to be dealing with as they come back down to Earth, in addition to whatever medical issue is plaguing at least one of them.
That capsule may look like it's moving slow, but it is booking it at 17,000 miles per hour back toward planet Earth, as you were looking at that live shot there. Just incredible to see from space. And those words from Mission Control, Endeavour crew, enjoy the ride home. We are going to be checking back. I have to thank all of you, Mike, Paul, Gotti, Tom. We couldn't do it without you. Your expertise, your reporting, your analysis. A key moment here for NASA, for the space station, and much more coverage to come. Tom, I know we'll be seeing you, some of you, I think, in the wee hours of the morning when this thing splashes down. Thank you all. Keep you posted. Thanks.
Thank you.
We've got to get to some other major headlines today, too. And there are plenty back here on planet Earth and specifically overseas, because we're hearing from President Trump in just the last few hours saying that the killing in Iran, he says, has stopped on the day the regime was expected to execute its first protester. Here's what the president had to say.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped, and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions. I'm sure if it happens, we'll all be very upset.
Now, the State Department had said that this man, you see him here, a 26-year-old protester, was scheduled to be executed. You heard the president that he has it, he says, on good authority, that is not going to happen. NBC News has not independently confirmed that the execution has been postponed. This fits part and parcel to what we've been talking about now for days, this escalating violent crackdown from the Iranian regime on demonstrators. They were promising to punish any of these anti-government activists. In Tehran today, do you hear that? Some of that popping shots in the streets. So far, some 2,600 people have been killed, including children and members of Iran's security forces, according to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency. Thousands more have been arrested, they say. And this is happening, you can imagine, as tensions are high. This is a region on edge, with Iranians waiting for what could be a potentially historic regime collapse, or perhaps not. I want to bring in our Richard Engel, who is back here in Washington for us. Last week, you and I were talking about the possibility this could escalate to the point that it has. But the president is now suggesting there has been a de-escalation. Based on your reporting, our team's reporting, is there any sign of that on the ground?
That the shooting has stopped, that the killing has stopped. There has been a change in the demonstrations. The regime does seem to be finding its feet. It was completely overwhelmed in the initial days of these demonstrations and didn't anticipate that they would come from every walk of life. And there were hundreds of thousands of people on the street in every single province. And now what we're seeing are more pro-government supporters on the streets. Today they were coming out in solidarity with the security forces that have been killed. State media blanket on repeat showing the pro-government demonstrations. They've relaxed some of the communications restrictions. So the internet blackout is generally still in place, but Iranians can communicate more, including with the outside world, in a limited way. So the government is trying to show to the world that it is back in charge. The foreign minister who was speaking on Fox News a short while ago said that the government is now fully back in charge. And what we're seeing more now of is the protesters coming out more at night. So things have changed.
Yeah.
Have the killings stopped? Activists certainly do not believe so, and they worry that the government will continue its crackdown, but in a more targeted way, going after activists, going after organizers, looking for people who have satellite communications systems, that it will be a different kind of crackdown.
Do you get the sense then, with the dynamic at play on the ground right now, that the regime, number one, has a longer-term handle on things in Iran, and number two, that these military options that the president had apparently been considering, based on sources talking to NBC News, are, if not off the table, at least perhaps backburnered?
It's very hard to know because the war this summer came while the negotiations with Iran were taking place. They actually were sitting down with Iranian officials when the bombs started falling. So President Trump says, no, we're going to hold back.
Right.
It doesn't mean that he's going to. There could be an attack in a few hours. I don't think that the Iranian government that has been in place for decades now, since the 1979 revolution, which has had death to America as its slogan, which has never been at its weakest point, is somehow going to get a free pass after all of this. I think the United States, Israel, several Arab allies see that it's weak and want to continue to push on this government. I'm not sure it's going to happen tonight, however, because there were several Arab states that were saying just yesterday, we're not quite ready for this. Do you have a plan? I've spoken to a senior Arab official earlier who's wondering, does the Trump administration have a plan for not just day 2 or day 3, but year 2 or year 3? Look at the map. I mean, this is a country that sits between Iraq and Afghanistan, and both times the U.S. went in there, it led to years of American intervention, regime collapse, war. So there's a concern. You rush into this, you topple the regime, and then what happens after that? But I'm not sure that they've given up on Iran. Actually, I'm quite sure that they have not.
Richard Engel, our chief foreign correspondent here in D.C. tonight. Richard, thank you. I know you'll be staying close no matter what happens. Appreciate it. Also, in just the last couple of hours here in Washington, we heard from Denmark's foreign minister, who says he shares some of the concerns that the Trump administration has about Greenland's security. But after this meeting with Vice President Vance, the Secretary of State, he says there's no agreement yet on the big elephant in the room.
We didn't manage to change the American position. It's clear that the president has this wish of conquering over Greenland. We made it very, very clear that this is not in the interest of the kingdom.
Okay, TLDR, Denmark doesn't want to give up Greenland. Donald Trump, the president, would like to have Greenland. He has repeatedly and publicly made that case. Look, he said it. NATO's stronger with Greenland in the hands of the United States. He says anything less than that is unacceptable. He keeps saying it. He keeps not ruling out the possibility that he may use force to take it. But a purchase, if he was to buy it, that's expensive. 3 people familiar with the cost. Yes, there's a price tag on Greenland. Could be like $700 billion. For context, that's something like 10% of the whole budget federally in 2025. And people in Denmark and Greenland are not so super thrilled. Look at this. Protests outside the U.S. Embassy in Copenhagen And in Greenland's capital, you see kids here waving their own country's flags, not U.S. flags. Let me bring in Gabe Gutierrez at the White House. All of it, like, it was all, I think, when you see these diplomatic moments, you also hear, to a degree, diplomatic speak. So nobody's coming out and pounding tables. You're hearing people call the discussion frank and constructive. That said, there has been no real resolution on this, as the president made clear even just a couple hours ago.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. Look, how many times have you not heard diplomats say that a conversation was frank and constructive? In this case, they didn't agree on anything. And it's clear that the president appears to be serious about this. And that maybe wasn't the case several months ago. At least that was the perception. A lot of people thought that the president was just floating this idea, perhaps not to be taken seriously. Well, now it is being taken seriously. And as you mentioned, according to people familiar with the cost estimate, and one senior White House official pointed out that Secretary of State Rubio was given the directive to try and figure out what would the administration need to do to purchase Greenland, that this is a priority for the President of the United States. Now, the administration hasn't come out and publicly said that this is the route they want to go, actually purchasing Greenland. The president, when he was asked about this today in the Oval Office, listen to what he said.
Greenland is very important for the national security, including of Denmark. And the problem is, there's not a thing that Denmark can do about it if Russia or China wants to occupy Greenland.
Now, Hallie, the Denmark officials today pushed back on what they call the narrative from the President of the United States that there were Chinese warships stationed off the coast of Greenland. They say that that is not the case, according to their intelligence. And at this point, the President has been very vague about exactly how he would want to control Greenland, though he still hasn't ruled out military force, and certainly that is causing some anxiety amongst European allies. Of course, Denmark is itself a NATO ally, Hallie.
What's interesting here, Gabe, like, okay, let's say, so the purchasing thing, still a question mark. Let's say the president doesn't do that. Let's say he takes Greenland via military force. Basically, nobody wants that. And that's not me. That's if you look at new polling here, even from the president's own party, look at this. Even among Republicans, only 8% would back any sort of move to try to take the Greenland using military muscle here. So where is this incentive coming from?
Look, I think at this point, yes, you mentioned Republicans growing increasingly skeptical about this. Tom Tillis from North Carolina, somebody who is going increasingly against the administration when it comes to some of its policies now, calling this absurd today on Capitol Hill. At the incentive here, it doesn't appear that military action is indeed in the cards, though, for Greenland, although this debate comes just several days, really, after the administration arrested and captured Nicolas Maduro down in Venezuela. So that has raised a lot of eyebrows. But at this point, there does seem to be a lot of diplomatic back and forth at this point. Denmark has seemed to suggest that, look, if the U.S. military wants to increase its presence in Greenland, they're not opposed to that. What they don't want to see is, and what they don't want is this takeover somehow. It's really unclear at this point. Again, the president, when asked about it directly today, he has been vague. But Denmark officials have said that they plan to come up with some sort of committee, some sort of diplomatic working group to figure out where this goes from here.
Can I just throw in super quickly? I know we're out of time, Gabe, but just like the moment of political intrigue that is sort of fascinating in its own right. Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, both of them kind of circling this issue, both of them seen as potential 2028 contenders. I'm not trying to overread the political drama of it all, but, like, are you picking up on that?
Look, I think Venezuela, of course, was seen as a pet project of Secretary of State Rubio. He has made that such a huge part of his political career. Greenland, meanwhile, you see video there of Vice President Vance, he has been talking up the Greenland issue since the better part of last year. Look, the vice president has been taking the lead on this issue of Greenland, but Secretary of State Rubio has been given this directive as well. Certainly both of them are trying to make as many inroads as they can as we head into this midterm election year. And, of course, 2028 campaign not very far away. What midterm election?
2028?
Yeah, midterm election. 2028, yeah. It's hard to believe it's right around the corner. Weren't we just talking about 2024?
Gabe Gutierrez, we're just so glad you're along for the ride, whatever year it is.
Always.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you for all that on the North Lawn. Still ahead, a lot more to get through here on what's already been a jam-packed show. This new warning now from the White House after FBI agents searched the home of a Washington Post reporter who covers the Trump administration. We're getting into that. Plus, some exclusive new reporting just out here at NBC News on what we're learning about an error in ICE's recruitment system, sending some agents into field offices without proper training. Just before coming on the air, we learned more information, including some comments from the president about the FBI raid of a Washington Post reporter covering the Trump administration and an apparent leak of classified documents about Venezuela, which the president seemed to link in the Oval Office earlier. Watch.
The leaker has been found and is in jail right now. And that's the leaker on Venezuela, and a very bad leaker. So there could be some others, and we'll let you know about that. We're hot on their trail.
Two federal law enforcement officials are now confirming that the leaker he's talking about is this systems engineer in Maryland who's been charged with illegally having classified documents in his home and in his car. That individual apparently has a hearing tomorrow to figure out whether he'll go to trial. Now, in connection to that case, you may have heard about this. The FBI raided the home of a Washington Post reporter, taking her phone, her laptops, her smartwatch, her Garmin, according to the Post. To be clear, the Post says investigators told that reporter that she is not the focus of the actual investigation. But according to the Attorney General, that journalist was obtaining and reporting classified and illegally leaked information from a Pentagon contractor. Let me bring in Ryan Riley now, because the other thing you got to say about this is how unusual it is that the FBI would take this sort of move to raid the home of to search the home of a reporter in the first place.
Yeah, it is very unusual, but it's also, I think, a little bit of a consequence of this now signal era that we are in. And basically because you have end-to-end encryption, instead of sort of going and seizing from a third party or sort of information that's in the cloud, which is often in the past how some of these scandals have come about with regards to obtaining information from reporters, now you actually have to physically seize the device in order to get what's on that device, what's on those cell phones and in the Signal app. So, I mean, I think there's a little bit of definitely an escalation here. We did see this tweet from the press secretary also sort of laying out what the issues were here, saying that leaking classified information puts America's national security and safety of our military heroes in serious jeopardy.
And Hannah Natanson, the reporter who works for the Post here, had done a lot of reporting on the federal workforce cuts, right? I mean, that had largely been her beat, as she has written about extensively since, you know, the Doge era about a year ago.
Yeah, she wrote a really a great piece about, you know, all the people that she talked to over the course of this, and she basically posted on Reddit with her Signal information and ended up with more than 1,000 contacts from within the federal government. So that's a lot of people, I think, who are probably, you know, pretty nervous about what's going to happen to that information down the line. I mean, it's definitely going to have a chilling effect, and some journalist organizations are already pointing out some of those issues. We have a statement from Seth Stern here saying that from the Society of Professional Journalists about the issues that this causes. There's also we also saw the former press secretary for the Justice Department, Sochi Anosha, say that this is a major issue in that normally they would have a process for going through and getting these approved. Like she's someone a lot of us beat reporters on the Justice Department know well, and normally there would be a sign-off process, but sort of those have all gone away because of this memo that the Pam Bondi put out back in April that sort of got rid of a lot of those protections, which are essentially just written norms. There's nothing in the law really protecting journalists necessarily here. These are just sort of written norms that are based on political pressure and scandals and feedback. So that's what these have been essentially negotiated in the past, but it really depends upon what administration is in office and what policies they're going to bring forward. And the Trump administration, obviously is sort of at war with the fake news media, quote unquote. So they have a much different policy than we have seen either from the Obama administration in the past or from the Biden administration in the past. Although we should say during the Obama administration, there were plenty of journalists who were subpoenaed, myself included, 2 days into the Obama administration before some of those policies were in place, protecting journalists from being able to protect their sources.
Ryan Riley, it's good context. Thank you very much. Appreciate you staying on top of this one for us. Also tonight, we're just getting in some exclusive reporting new to NBC News about what appears to be an error in ICE's recruitment system that meant some officers got sent into field offices without proper training. So here's the deal. Apparently, ICE uses this AI tool to categorize new recruits who have worked in law enforcement before. There was some kind of glitch with it that led to ICE temporarily putting recruits with little to no experience into a more experienced category, meaning they got less training. That's according to 2 law enforcement officials familiar with this error. Now, it's not clear if any of those recruits actually ended up going out onto the streets, but we're learning about this as we're seeing ICE send more people into cities across the U.S., like in Minneapolis, where there's obviously been a surge in officers in the past month. Now, the officer who shot and killed Renee Good in Minneapolis last week is apparently not one of those officers. It was part of this whole thing, the glitch issue. He's been with ICE for 10 years. The Department of Homeland Security hasn't responded to our request for comment. Our Julia Ainsley is the byline on this story. She is reporting this first. She is joining us now first. And Julia, we're glad to have you. ICE was surging, right? I mean, this was the thing. They were trying to build up their numbers here to be able to go out and carry out President Trump's immigration agenda.
Yeah, they had the mandate to hire 10,000 new recruits after the One Big Beautiful Bill passed, and they had to do it by the end of 2025. So an easy way to do that is to find people who already have law enforcement experience, and they only have to do a 4-week online class, and then they're sent to their field office. Field office trains them a little more, and then they can go out. But what happened is AI went through these resumes, and anytime they saw the word officer, even if it was, I aspire to be an ICE officer, or I was a compliance officer, all these other ways, they automatically put them in the law enforcement officer field, which meant they didn't go to the ICE Academy, which is an 8-week in-person training. You get trained on things like the Fourth Amendment, when you can break the window of someone's car, how to handle your gun, physical fitness tests, things that are really a barrier to entry on purpose so that people know how to go out in the field and do law enforcement work. And so people were miscategorized and sent out into these field offices. And now what we're told is they're doing a scrubbing to try to go through, find all these people who went out without the proper training, bring them back to training before they go out again. So yes, even though we don't know how many of these may have gone out onto the streets, they went to field offices. So that's the green light. They were able to go out and start making arrests.
What's the timeline to, for lack of a better word, fix this, or to bring them back, get them actually trained, and then send them back out?
Well, they started reviewing this in mid-November, but it's a huge pool of people. They hired about 10,000 people since August, as they were told to do. So they've got to go through all those people. They're still doing it now, and then they now have to put them through 8 weeks of training. What used to be 13 weeks of training, Trump administration changed it to 8, but they still have to get those. So it really is kind of winding back the clock on this goal that the Trump administration had, and raising questions about who's out on the streets right now as this tension is rising.
Well, talk about Minneapolis then.
Yeah.
That's what you're referring to. Is any of this, have a nexus to, do we know what's been happening in Minneapolis?
Yeah, well, look, they added 2,000 ICE officers to the streets of Minneapolis just 2 days before the shooting of Renee Nicole Good. And we know that of those, many of them had to be new recruits because they're beefing up this agency. Now, how many of those in Minneapolis didn't get the training that they needed? We don't know that. We're not connecting all of those dots yet, but it's raising questions about the vetting system. We already knew there were some people who were showing up at training who hadn't passed their background checks and who did have criminal histories. So it's yet another time where we're learning that in this rush to hire more people and to get them out on the streets, there's some really serious errors that were made. And then look, even when you do have someone with 10 years of experience like this officer, things can happen.
To be clear, no response from DHS on your new reporting?
No response from DHS. And I should say, of course, the investigation is still playing out into what happened with that officer as well.
Julia Ainsley, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Still ahead, the new move from Matthew McConaughey to protect himself from deep fakes. Wait till you hear what he's doing next. So there's this landmark moment, very interesting one, in the battle between celebrities and AI, with one star taking a new approach to try to prevent deepfakes and bad imitations. We're talking about Matthew McConaughey, who says he is trademarking himself. Matthew McConaughey, TM, trying to stop people from manipulating his face and voice, a face and voice behind some pretty iconic moments.
All right, all right, all right. Name of the game, move the money from your client's pocket into your pocket.
Well, we used to look up in the sky and wonder at our place in the stars. Now we just look down and worry about our place in the dirt.
Some iconic McConaughey lines there. He's now telling the Wall Street Journal that he wants to know that when his voice or likeness is used, it's because he's signed off on it, that he approved it. He said, we want to create a clear perimeter around consent in the AI world. And that part about him signing off is key here because he's also investing in AI. He's partnering with a voice cloning company, 11 Labs, that lets people license famous voices for like ads or whatever. Morgan Chesky is following this one for us. It feels a lot like, and we've covered McConaughey's moves on this before, it feels like he is trying to get out in front of this technology that is like, in the last couple of years, kind of taken over everything, including Hollywood.
Hallie, it's moving so incredibly quickly that I think everyone is doing the best they can to try to stay at the forefront of it. And I just walked away from an interview with one of the attorneys that worked with McConaughey on creating this trademark. And I asked him, is one of the motivating factors here because government laws are slow at this point in time? He says, absolutely, that's something they had to take into consideration. That's one of the reasons I wanted to be proactive and get this trademark filed. It was interesting, Hallie, when I asked him, what legally constitutes, this protected area of Matthew McConaughey, especially with his voice. He said it's not just the voice, it's the cadence, it's the Texas twang, it's the way in which he puts words together. All of that falls under this trademark that was recently approved by the trademark office. And I want you to hear specifically from an AI expert just on where they land as this conversation continues. Take a listen.
We have this marvelous technology that can learn so much from us. But on the other hand, we have people who want to use it to pretend to be a CEO, to pretend to be a CFO, to pretend to be Matthew McConaughey. And that is the place where we've got to put stakes in the ground.
Now, that expert makes a good point here, Hallie, into kind of drawing the line from, what AI can learn from someone whose work is out there and what's prohibited to them going forward, because all of this is still very much a moving target here, Hallie.
The other stars have trademarked. I mean, Matthew McConaughey's trademarking like himself. I mean, which is part of what's so interesting here: his face, his voice, his image, etc. Other stars have trademarked maybe a catchphrase, right? Like parts of their stuff. But do you see this becoming the new norm moving forward?
I think until, at least according to his attorney, Hallie, until the government laws catch up, he said expect to see more stars, more celebrities do this. And it did bring up an interesting question here, Hallie. And I asked him, because Matthew McConaughey has the means, has the resources in order to, file for this trademark, does that put a lesser celebrity or an average American, such as myself, at a greater disadvantage when it comes when it comes to protecting oneself from being copied or cloned or taken advantage of in some commercial sense by artificial intelligence? And he says that's certainly a gray area that lawmakers are going to have to take a very close look at here.
Morgan Chesky, man, it's fascinating. It's a whole new world. But, Morgan Chesky TM. We'll see if that's in the works for you anytime soon. Appreciate you. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, Hallie.
That does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air with President Trump suggesting that, in his words, the killing has stopped in Iran as the world is watching whether he may take military action. Right now, very little confirmation of what's actually happening on the ground as the Iranian regime had escalated its crackdown on protesters. We've got team coverage tonight, including on some new developments just into us on Iran restricting some flights in its airspace. We'll ask what that's about in a minute. Also new in just the last hour, the first time ever that a crew of astronauts is leaving the International Space Station early because of a medical problem. You watched it unfold live last hour. Now our Tom Costello is looking ahead at what happens next. Then a Hollywood star in court tonight on suspicion of child sex abuse. We're live in New Mexico with what's next for Timothy Busfield. Plus, the eye-popping price tag for Greenland. Some of the details we're just getting into NBC News on what it would cost to make the president's Greenland dream come true and how officials from Denmark are reacting to a meeting today about it. Then the price you might have to pay for tickets to the next Olympics here in the USA and why folks out in LA could have a leg up for 2028 as the Olympics for 2026 gets closer. That's later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we start tonight with the latest coming in from President Trump on Iran. In just the last few hours, you watched it here live, suggesting that the killing has stopped there on the day the regime was supposed to execute, or was expected to, its first protester. Listen.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped, and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions. I'm sure if it happens, we'll all be very upset.
The president was kind of cagey about how he got that heads up, if you will. The State Department had said that this man you see here, a 26-year-old demonstrator, had been scheduled to be executed. NBC News has not independently confirmed the execution was postponed. The regime promising to punish any anti-government activists in Tehran today. And listen to this. You hear that popping sound, shots in the streets there. So far, it's believed some 2,600 people have been killed, including children and members of the Iranian security forces, according to human rights groups. And President Trump is getting what officials are calling tailored options today for a response to the Iranian regime's crackdown. That's according to U.S. officials and a person familiar with the discussions. All as hundreds of troops are beginning to evacuate from a huge U.S. military base in Qatar, according to a U.S. official and a person familiar with the matter. The sources tell NBC News the troops are moving to some other facilities and to some hotels in the region, trying to get them out of harm's way in case any potential U.S. attack triggers a retaliation, etc. All of it is Iran is threatening to target U.S. military bases if President Trump intervenes there. Let's get to our reporters here covering all of this. Courtney Kuby on the potential military intervention, but I want to start with Garrett Hake live for us at the White House. And this was interesting to hear the president today talk about this, because there had been, I think you could call it a build over the course of the last maybe week or so. These questions are reporting from our team here at NBC News about he was considering the potential for options, including maybe a military strike, the Iranian regime escalating its crackdown, the potential for this protester to be executed. And now the president is saying, wait a second, the temperature is actually coming down. Do we know where he's getting the information from, and what else are you hearing from your sources at the White House?
We don't know where that information is coming from, Hallie, and I think it was a shock to a lot of people, certainly including me, to hear the change in the president's tone. I mean, even for a political figure known for a certain degree of bombast and hyperbole, the president had been ratcheting up pressure on Iran and drawing what appeared to be a series of red lines about violence against protesters not being tolerated, suggesting not 24 hours ago, in his own words on Truth Social, that help was on the way to these Iranian dissidents who've been taking to the streets for more than a week now. And then to hear suddenly today that he's satisfied what appears to be the regime's explanation that executions won't happen and that the killing have stopped was a major departure from the kind of language we've heard. That said, the president has not taken military options off the table and said this about the execution question, which I think appears to be the real pivotal thing at this moment.
We're going to watch and see what the process is, but we were given a very good statement by people that are aware of what's going on. I mean, when they say no executions, everyone is talking about a lot of executions were taking place today. We were just told no executions. I hope that's true. That's a big thing.
So, Hallie, it's possible that executions are the new red line, but there was a different red line 24 hours ago. So we'll see where this lands.
And it also doesn't necessarily mean that this precludes the possibility of any U.S. action in Iran, right? I just wonder if we should note the context that, like, all of this is taken with a grain of salt.
100%. And the range of options is something that we know that has been discussed in recent days, whether we're talking about a military strike, whether we're talking about an effort to sort of fulsomely pursue regime change, or whether we're talking about something like a cyber attack or some other, way to damage the regime or send a proverbial warning shot. The president has been known to talk publicly about actions that are oftentimes done in covert ways. So I think that's another tool potentially at the president's disposal. Really, Hallie, all of Washington is essentially waiting to see what, if anything, he chooses off this menu of options that has been reportedly presented to him over the last couple of days.
Garrett Hake, live for us at the White House. Thank you. Courtney Kuby is joining us now. Can we talk about the menu of options? How specific can we get on that?
So we know that they have been tailored based off exactly what the president told the military he wants to achieve here. So the objectives.
Pause, meaning like, so they present him a big thing, a whole bunch of things, and he says, I want X, Y, and Z, and now they're coming back for like a revised strike.
Exactly. So they'll go to him and say, look, what do you want to achieve with these strikes? Do you want to support the protesters? Do you want to topple the regime? Do you want to take out their ballistic missiles? Do you want to go after the nuclear sites? Like, what is the military objective with these strikes? We know that the president has provided that to the military. CENTCOM has a ton of plans available at all times. I can guarantee they probably have dozens and dozens of targets in Iran right now that they can provide to him, but they needed to know what he wanted to do with this. And then they can not just provide, here's the target options, here's how we would strike them, but they can tell things like, look, here's the possibility of how many civilians could be killed. Here's what we think we would actually achieve with these strikes. Those kinds of things that will help the president make his decision. And that's just what we would call the kinetic. That doesn't involve the things that would be non-kinetic, like cyber.
I'm looking at my phone because I know that in the last couple of minutes, right as we were coming on the air, we got word about the closure of some Iranian airspace. How should we be reading into or not reading into that? What does that mean? Because any change in like the status quo is always like, okay, what's up?
That's a tea leaf people would read because of the possibility of either airstrikes or additional aircraft or missile strikes.
Right.
But at this point, we have no indication that any of that's imminent.
But help us understand this, because as the president is suggesting, as you heard from Garrett, in just the last few hours, that perhaps the temperature is getting lower. As you're reporting, the U.S. is also evacuating troops from a base nearby out of precaution. How do those things square?
And the reason that tea leaf has people so concerned is because back in June, that's exactly what the U.S. did in advance of Iran firing more than a dozen missiles at Al Udeid, and it saved potentially hundreds or thousands of lives.
So the bottom line is lots of tea leaves, but no conclusions yet?
Precisely.
Okay, Courtney Cubie with the TLDR. Thanks, Court. Busy night, a busy couple of days for you ahead, potentially. Thank you. Also tonight, a live look at space. How often do we say that? That's what we got over the course of the last couple of hours here, as the 4 astronauts of NASA's Crew 11 are on their way, as we speak, back to Earth after you watch that undocking from the International Space Station in just the last hour. What a moment. Here it is. The SpaceX Dragon Endeavour capsule popping off. Undocking is the technical term, I guess. Floating away into space. And here's the parting message from Mission Control to the astronauts on board as they hand over to the next set of mission controllers.
Endeavour crew, enjoy the ride home.
Endeavour crew copies on the big loop. Thank you.
The passengers on this ride for the course of the next 10, 12 hours or so, 2 Americans, 1 Japanese astronaut, 1 Russian cosmonaut. Now, one of these 4, we don't know who, has a medical issue that NASA says it can't really get a handle on 250 miles above Earth. So for the first time ever in the International Space Station's history, they are pulling them home early to be safe. They want to make sure to get them down on the ground and get them taken care of. I want to bring in our Stay Tuned host, Gadi Schwartz, who is our resident space geek here, who is watching with us through all of this. So, Gadi, a couple of things here. Number one, we don't know who has the medical issue or what specifically that medical issue is. We're not calling it, NASA's not calling it an emergency, but it is obviously serious enough that they had to bring them home about 6 weeks early. So now they're on their way back. They're going to splash down. I think it's 3:40 Eastern time in the Pacific, out in your neck of the woods there in California. What do the next 10 hours look like for them? They're just floating?
Yeah, they're just floating, and then they're anticipating what's going to happen when they ride the Dragon back into the atmosphere. That's one of the things that astronauts describe it as, because it is very, very intense. And like you just described, let's hope this is one of those better safe than sorry situations at the very, very highest levels, because it did look like everyone was in good spirits climbing aboard the Crew Dragon, good but bittersweet spirits during the handoff ceremony for the command of the International Space Station a little bit earlier. We don't know who has the medical condition or what it is. It does not look obvious from what we can see in the very public live streams that we've seen of them. We do know that it is not the Japanese astronaut, Kimya Yu, because Japan, the country of Japan, has said so. That leaves either Mike Fink or Zena Cardman, the Americans, or technically the Russian cosmonaut, because Russia has not said anything about this medical condition or who might have it. But we do know that this is serious enough to cut that mission short for the first time in the 25 years that humans have been orbiting Earth in the ISS. There's never been a medical evacuation like this. But hopefully that's the only outlier, because so far everything, Hallie, seems nominal. Right now they are coasting in for that plummet back down to Earth, and they go like 17,000 miles an hour. They're going to be slowing down to 15 miles an hour thanks to some very beefy Pika X heat shields. They're going to get plasma blasted 3,500 degrees. Think about that for a second. When it comes to that, like the humans inside of that capsule. Actually, Hallie, if you could just cut back out to me, because I've got my trusty Crew Dragon here.
What do you have? Do you have a prop?
Yes, it's like anytime these things happen, I just pull out my little toy and then I just imagine that there are 4 human beings inside of this top part that we put on a rocket, we blast it off into the nothingness of space. This bottom part right here, this trunk, this is going to come off. They're going to jettison this before they come into re-entry. And then this top capsule, that's what you see bobbing in the ocean. When this part jettisons off, it exposes the heat shield, those Pica heat shields. Again, 3,500 degrees. That's like hotter than lava in a volcano. And you put these 4 humans inside, and then they just plummet down to Earth, and then parachutes go off. And this is something that like we do normally as humans now. It is insane to think of the ingenuity that goes into all of this. And so, yeah, we're hoping that everything is good. We're hoping that those astronauts are healthy and that they get the evaluation. Whoever's in question here gets the evaluation that they need. And that's going to be happening as soon as they crack open the capsule and welcome them back down to Earth.
Mission Control watching every single minute of it from now to splashdown and beyond as those astronauts then get that medical treatment. Gotti Schwartz watching all of it as well. Why haven't you been to space yet? We gotta work on that.
Are you kidding me? This is my resume. Please, anybody with a spaceship, like put me in one of these.
Send it to
down,
NASA.
I'm fine with it. Yes, Mars and beyond. I'm good.
I appreciate you so much. I know you're going to have a lot more coverage coming up tonight on Stay Tuned. So please join Gotti then. He, Tom Costello, the whole gang will be covering all of this tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern on NBC News Now. Let's get to some more news from overseas, too, because there's a lot of it. In just the last few hours, we heard from the foreign minister of Denmark saying that, yeah, he shares some of the Trump administration's concerns about Greenland's security. But after a high-profile meeting today with the vice president, with the secretary of state, he says there's really no done deal yet on the big elephant in the room. Listen.
We didn't manage to change the American position. It's clear that the president has this wish of conquering over Greenland. We made it very, very clear that this is not in the interest of the kingdom.
Okay. So Denmark's like, we don't want somebody else to take Greenland. President Trump is like, I definitely want Greenland. He's been really clear about that. Look, he says NATO is more effective with Greenland in the hands of the U.S. Anything less than that is unacceptable. Obviously, Greenland does not belong to the U.S. The president could take it by force. The president could maybe buy it. That's really expensive. 3 people familiar with the cost exclusively tell our team it could be something like $700 billion. Folks in Denmark and Greenland not exactly thrilled about the prospect. You see here today protests outside the U.S. Embassy in Copenhagen. And in the capital of Greenland, look at this. Kids here waving their own country's flags, not U.S. flags. Gabe Gutierrez is at the White House for us. When you see these diplomatic moments, you also hear, to a degree, diplomatic speak. So nobody's coming out and pounding tables. You're hearing people call the discussion frank and constructive. That said, there has been no real resolution on this, as the president made clear even just a couple hours ago.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. Look, how many times have you not heard diplomats say that a conversation was frank and constructive? In this case, they didn't agree on anything. And it's clear that the president appears to be serious about this. And that maybe wasn't the case several months ago. At least that was the perception. A lot of people thought that the president was just floating this idea, perhaps not to be taken seriously. Well, now it is being taken seriously. And as you mentioned, according to people familiar with the cost estimate, and one senior White House official pointed out that Secretary of State Rubio was given the directive to try and figure out what would the administration need to do to purchase Greenland, that this is a priority for the President of the United States. Now, the administration hasn't come out and publicly said that this is the route they want to go, actually purchasing Greenland. The President, when he was asked about this today in the Oval Office, listen to what he said.
Greenland's very important for the national security, including of Denmark. And the problem is, there's not a thing that Denmark can do about it if Russia or China wants to occupy Greenland.
Now, Hallie, the Denmark officials today pushed back on what they call the narrative from the President of the United States that there were Chinese warships stationed off the coast of Greenland. They say that that is not the case, according to their intelligence. And at this point, the President has been very vague about exactly how he would want to control Greenland, though he still hasn't ruled out military force, and certainly that is causing some anxiety amongst European allies. Of course, Denmark is itself a NATO ally, Hallie.
What's interesting here, Gabe, like, okay, let's say So the purchasing thing, still a question mark. Let's say the president doesn't do that. Let's say he takes Greenland via military force. Basically, nobody wants that. And that's not me. That's if you look at new polling here, even from the president's own party, look at this. Even among Republicans, only 8% would back any sort of move to try to take the Greenland using military muscle here. So where is this incentive coming from?
Look, I think at this point, yes, you mentioned Republicans growing increasingly skeptical about this. Tom Tillis from North Carolina, somebody who is going increasingly against the administration when it comes to some of its policies now, calling this absurd today on Capitol Hill. At the incentive here, it doesn't appear that military action is indeed in the cards, though, for Greenland, although this debate comes just several days, really, after the administration arrested and captured Nicolas Maduro down in Venezuela. So that has raised a lot of eyebrows. But at this point, there does seem to be a lot of diplomatic back and forth at this point. Denmark has seemed to suggest that, look, if the U.S. military wants to increase its presence in Greenland, they're not opposed to that. What they don't want to see is, and what they don't want is this takeover somehow. It's really unclear at this point. Again, the president, when asked about it directly today, he has been vague. But Denmark officials have said that they plan to come up with some sort of committee, some sort of diplomatic working group to figure out where this goes from here.
Can I just throw in super quickly, I know we're out of time, Gabe, but just like the moment of political intrigue that is sort of fascinating in its own right. Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, both of them kind of circling this issue, both of them seen as potential 2028 contenders. I'm not trying to overread the political drama of it all, but like, are you picking up on that?
Look, I think Venezuela, of course, was seen as a pet project of Secretary of State Rubio. He has made that such a huge part of his political career. Greenland, meanwhile, you see video there of Vice President Vance. He has been talking up the Greenland issue since the better part of last year. Look, the vice president has been taking the lead on this issue of Greenland, but Secretary of State Rubio has been given this directive as well. Certainly both of them are trying to make as many inroads as they can as we head into this midterm election year. And of course, 2028 campaign, not
what
very
midterm
far
election?
away.
2028?
Midterm election. 2028, yeah. It's hard to believe it's right around the corner. Weren't we just talking about 2024?
Gabe Gutierrez, we're just so glad you're along for the ride, whatever year it is.
Always.
Appreciate you.
Anytime.
You, friend. Thank you for all that on the North Lawn. Also tonight, we are learning more about the FBI raid of a Washington Post reporter. The FBI searching the home of a reporter covering the Trump administration. And it's linked to an alleged leak of classified documents about Venezuela, which the president insinuated. He implied that the two were connected in the Oval Office a little earlier. Look at this.
The leaker has been found and is in jail right now. And that's the leaker on Venezuela. And a very bad leaker. So there could be some others, and we'll let you know about that. We're out on their trail.
Two federal law enforcement officials confirmed the leaker he's talking about is a systems engineer in Maryland, charged with illegally having classified documents in his home and in his car. That person has a hearing tomorrow to figure out whether he will go to trial in connection to that case. The FBI searched the home of a Washington Post reporter, taking her phone, her laptops, a Garmin watch, according to the Post, a smartwatch. Now, to be clear, the paper says investigators told the reporter she is not the focus of the actual investigation. According to the Attorney General, that journalist was obtaining and reporting classified and illegally leaked information from a Pentagon contractor. But for some context here, I want to bring in Ryan Riley, because the other thing you got to say about this is how unusual it is that the FBI would take this sort of move to raid the home of to search the home of a reporter in the first place.
Yeah, it is very unusual, but it's also, I think, a little bit of a consequence of this now signal era that we are in. And basically because you have end-to-end encryption, instead of sort of going and seizing from a third party or sort of information that's in the cloud, which is often in the past how some of these scandals have come about with regards to obtaining information from reporters, now you actually have to physically seize the device in order to get what's on that device, what's on those cell phones and in the Signal app. So, I mean, I think there's a little bit of definitely an escalation here. We did see this tweet from the press secretary also sort of laying out what the issues were here, saying that leaking classified information puts America's national security and safety of our military heroes in serious jeopardy.
And Hannah Natanson, the reporter who works for the Post here, had done a lot of reporting on the federal workforce cuts, right? I mean, that had largely been her beat, as she has written about extensively since, you know, the Doge era about a year ago.
Yeah, she wrote a really a great piece about, you know, all the people that she talked to over the course of this, and she basically posted on Reddit with her Signal information and ended up with more than 1,000 contacts from within the federal government. So that's a lot of people, I think, who are probably, you know, pretty nervous about what's going to happen to that information down the line. I mean, it's definitely going to have a chilling effect, and some journalist organizations are already pointing out some of those issues. We have a statement from Seth Stern here saying that from the Society of Professional Journalists about the issues that this causes. There's also we also saw the former press secretary for the Justice Department, Sochi Anosha, say that this is a major issue in that normally they would have a process for going through and getting these approved. Like she's someone a lot of us beat reporters on the Justice Department know well, and normally there would be a sign-off process, but sort of those have all gone away because of this memo that the Pam Bondi put out back in April that sort of got rid of a lot of those protections, which are essentially just written norms. There's nothing in the law really protecting journalists necessarily here. These are just sort of written norms that are based on political pressure and scandals and feedback. So that's what these have been essentially negotiated in the past, but it really depends upon what administration is in office and what policies they're going to bring forward. And the Trump administration, obviously is sort of at war with the fake news media, quote unquote. So they have a much different policy than we have seen either from the Obama administration in the past or from the Biden administration in the past. Although we should say during the Obama administration, there were plenty of journalists who were subpoenaed, myself included, 2 days into the Obama administration before some of those policies were in place, protecting journalists from being able to protect their sources.
Ryan Riley, it's good context. Thank you very much. Appreciate you staying on top of this one for us. Also tonight, some exclusive reporting about an apparent error in the ICE recruitment system that meant some officers got sent into field offices without proper training. Apparently, ICE uses this AI tool to categorize new recruits who have worked in law enforcement before. But there was some kind of a glitch, according to our reporting with it, that led to ICE temporarily putting recruits with little to no experience into a more experienced category, meaning they got less training, according to 2 law enforcement officials familiar with this error. It's not clear if any of these recruits actually went out into the streets, but we, of course, are learning about this as we're seeing ICE send more officers into cities across the U.S., like Minneapolis, where there's been a surge of agents in the past month. Now, the officer who shot Renee Good is not one of those who did not get the entirety of the training. He's been with ICE for quite a bit. He's been with ICE for something like 10 years. The Department of Homeland Security hasn't responded to our request for comment. Now, we're also learning tonight that that officer had internal bleeding to the torso after the shooting, according to what was confirmed by the Department of Homeland Security. I want to bring in Julia Ainsley, who's joining us now. ICE was surging, right? I mean, this was the thing. They were trying to build up their numbers here to be able to go out and carry out President Trump's immigration agenda.
Yeah, they had the mandate to hire 10,000 new recruits after the One Big Beautiful Bill passed, and they had to do it by the end of 2025. So an easy way to do that is to find people who already have law enforcement experience, and they only have to do a 4-week online class, and then they're sent to their field office. Field office trains them a little more, and then they can go out. But what happened is AI went through these resumes, and anytime they saw the word officer, even if it was, I aspire to be an ICE officer, or I was a compliance officer, all these other ways, they automatically put them in the law enforcement officer field, which meant they didn't go to the ICE Academy, which is an 8-week in-person training. You get trained on things like the Fourth Amendment, when you can break the window of someone's car, how to handle your gun, physical fitness test, things that are really a barrier to entry on purpose so that people know how to go out in the field and do law enforcement work. And so people were miscategorized and sent out into these field offices. And now what we're told is they're doing a scrubbing to try to go through, find all these people who went out without the proper training, bring them back to training before they go out again. So yes, even though we don't know how many of these may have gone out onto the streets, they went to field offices. So that's the green light. They were able to go out and start making arrests.
What's the timeline to, for lack of a better word, fix this, or to bring them back, get them actually trained, and then send them back out?
Well, they started reviewing this in mid-November, but it's a huge pool of people. They hired about 10,000 people since August, as they were told to do. So they've got to go through all those people. They're still doing it now, and then they now have to put them through 8 weeks of training. What used to be 13 weeks of training, Trump administration changed it to 8, but they still have to get those. So it really is kind of winding back the clock on this goal that the Trump administration had, and raising questions about who's out on the streets right now as this tension is rising.
Well, talk about Minneapolis then.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're referring to. Is any of this, have a nexus to, do we know what's been happening in Minneapolis?
Yeah, well, look, they added 2,000 ICE officers to the streets of Minneapolis just 2 days before the shooting of Renee Nicole Good. And we know that of those, many of them had to be new recruits because they're beefing up this agency. Now, how many of those in Minneapolis didn't get the training that they needed? We don't know that. We're not connecting all of those dots yet, but it's raising questions about the vetting system. We already knew there were some people who were showing up at training who hadn't passed their background checks and who did have criminal histories. So it's yet another time where we're learning that in this rush to hire more people and to get them out on the streets, there's some really serious errors that were made. And then look, even when you do have someone with 10 years of experience like this officer, things can happen.
To be clear, no response from DHS on your new reporting?
No response from DHS. And I should say, of course, the investigation is still playing out into what happened with that officer as well.
Julia Ainsley, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Coming up, some new details into us after a crane crashed onto a train in Thailand. We've got that video. Plus, why a fraternity says it's suing its own members. We'll explain. A Hollywood star making his first court appearance in the last half hour or so as he's facing a new sex abuse allegation, this time from a teenage girl who apparently auditioned for him in California. Help us understand, Dana, no plea yet from Busfield. What happened in court and what's next?
So, Hallie, this was what's called a first appearance, which means no plea. This was not his arraignment. And the prosecutor essentially said that they want to keep him in jail during the rest of these court proceedings. So that immediately kicks this to the district court, which means they have 5 days to set a new hearing where they will address that issue of whether or not a judge will keep him in jail or not. And then we proceed on with the arraignment and a possible plea. So we likely will see him in court next week. So not a whole lot. He stood there in his orange jumpsuit. He was very stoic. He was surrounded by guards. He was actually one of the last people on the docket to go today because of safety issues. They wanted to make sure that he went last. But it was very uneventful, and this is just the very start of what's going to be a long process. Hallie?
What about these accusations coming out? What else can you tell us about them? Again, obviously noting that Busfield's attorney says he denies it all.
Yeah, so the new allegations that came today, even before he made his first court appearance on the child sex abuse charges, this 16-year-old, or she was 16-year-old when this allegedly happened, her father reported this yesterday, telling police that Busfield kissed and put his hands down the pants of his then 16-year-old daughter when she was auditioning for a role at a theater back in Sacramento. Now, this comes on the heels of these new charges involving two 11-year-old boys who worked on the set of The Cleaning Lady a couple of years ago. They said that Busfield inappropriately touched them, and one of the boys said that he actually rubbed his genitalia, his buttocks, starting when he was 7. This abuse allegedly went on for a couple of years. Now, we've heard from Warner Brothers, who says that they investigated, they did a preliminary investigation, essentially did not find any evidence to corroborate that Busfield did anything inappropriate, and that they made all of their investigative material available to law enforcement. But they are arguing they want Busfield to stay behind bars because they think that he is a risk to the public here in New Mexico. It is a no cash bail system, which means that a judge will decide if you are released, and usually that has something to do with whether you are a flight risk or a potential danger to others. Hallie?
Dana Griffith live for us there in Albuquerque. Dana, thank you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, rescuers are looking for anybody who may have survived this crane crash in Thailand. Look at that, a crane just dropping onto that moving train there, killing at least 32 people. Some 70 others have been hurt. In all, about 200 people were on board. Number 2, dozens of members of the Alpha Sigma Phi chapter at Rutgers University are now facing a lawsuit from their own fraternity over a hazing incident last year. The fraternity is seeking damages after a pledge reportedly nearly died. He allegedly had water thrown at him, got an electric shock after touching a live wire. The fraternity calls the incident a betrayal of its values. Rutgers shut down the chapter and says it's investigating. Number 3, actor Kiefer Sutherland allegedly tried to cancel a rideshare a few times before apparently getting into an altercation with the driver in Los Angeles, according to a source close to the investigation. Sutherland was later arrested for allegedly assaulting and threatening the driver. Police say the driver was not seriously hurt. Sutherland is out on bond. His reps have not responded to our request for comment. Number 4, tens of thousands of Verizon customers, maybe you, are dealing with an outage. Did you get your phone stuck on SOS mode? Verizon says engineers are trying to fix the problem. Some people at T-Mobile and AT&T were also reporting issues, but both companies say now they're reporting, they're like, you know, operating back to normal. Number 5, one tennis player learning the hard way not to celebrate too soon. You can see in this video from ESPN, Sebastian Offner apparently thought he already won after the 7-1 lead at the Australian Open qualifier. Thing is, he needed 10 points and to be ahead by 2 to actually win. So even though he was like all psyched, no, there's still more game to play, and the other person came from behind to win the whole thing. That's the actual celebration there. You know, always want to run through the tape on that one. Tense day in court in Virginia as the defense tried to chip away at the credibility of a star witness on the stand in a double murder trial being called the au pair affair. This is the au pair/mistress who allegedly, prosecutors say, helped kill her boss's wife and a stranger. She told the jury it was hard to remember details of how it all came together.
You don't remember a lot of details.
Yeah.
That's what's really concerning about this.
Well, if you were in my shoes, you don't remember either. You know, your brain has a way to, a defense mechanism it's called. I can tell you that the fact that I not remember some specific details does not mean it's a lie.
Prosecutors say Brendan Banfield, who you see here in court today, got the au pair's help to frame a random person they catfished on a fetish dating website for the murder of his wife. They allegedly made the stranger think that it was Banfield's wife inviting him over to play out this consensual, violent sexual fantasy. Thing is, prosecutors say the wife, Christine Banfield, had no idea. So when the stranger showed up, she thought it was an actual intruder. That's when Banfield, apparently, showed up shooting the, and I'm using air quotes here, intruder, the other person, and then stabbed his wife to death. Banfield denies the allegations, and the au pair has taken a plea deal, which is why she's testifying in this trial. Ellison Barber has been watching this story for us. We've been covering it from a jump, Ellison, and so much of this, as we've been talking about and teeing up, this really critical testimony from the au pair now on the stand. We had spoken with our legal experts who said, yeah, the cross-examination is going to be important here. And at times, you saw today this au pair kind of getting visibly frustrated, it seemed, with some of those questions.
Yeah, I mean, she said, I can't recall and I don't remember quite a lot. And in a lot of moments, it was things that you would think if you had been involved in orchestrating this elaborate murder plot, you would remember it. At one point, the defense was asking her about the day she and Brendan Banfield allegedly created this account on that fetish website, posing as Christine, saying, who created it initially, you or Brendan? And she said she could not remember. They asked where she was in the house, what room, when they created it. She said she couldn't remember. But when they asked her where was Christine when you created it, she said in her bedroom upstairs. And the defense called it out directly multiple times, saying, as you played there, it's odd to me or concerning that you don't remember a lot of these details. Now, she says essentially this is a defense mechanism. It was her brain protecting her, but it raises questions that the defense wanted to present, basically saying, would you remember this? She doesn't. Is that weird to you? One thing I will say important to keep in mind here, the prosecution, when they delivered their opening remarks, they said Juliana Perez Magalhães is telling us a narrative. And they said she will give you details that we might not have had without her. But ultimately, they said what this trial will hinge on is the physical and forensic evidence. And at one point, at the end of her remarks, the prosecutor said this. She said the blood evidence is what you can rely upon without a doubt. She said, and I'm quoting here, and the blood puts Brendan Banfield standing over Christine, stabbing her in the neck until she died. And it's also interesting, by the way, that the state called this star witness so early, right? Maybe they did that because they do believe that they have enough other evidence, forensic evidence, physical evidence, as well as experts testify that they think that will really prove their case. So they took this witness that is complicated to get it out of the way so they could move on with the other things that they think will be more concrete for this jury.
Is there anything else you can tell us about the letters that this au pair wrote while she was behind bars?
Yeah, I mean, it was fascinating, right? They went through a lot of different things. Really, it was establishing her mindset from the moment she was in jail. She was in jail for about a year before Brendan Banfield was arrested. And all of these letters, some of them to Brendan, some of them to her family, some of them to his family, she talked about how she didn't want to spend the rest of her life behind bars, how she was depressed, how she was frustrated with her attorney, even at some point having conversations about looking to sell the rights to her story to some sort of TV unnamed producers. All of that they seem to be pointing to say, look at how she was dealing with things, right? She was upset. She was stuck behind bars. She'd been there a while. She needed a way out. Over time, did cooperating with prosecutors, taking this plea deal, become her way out? What they really want the jury to do is just have some questions to say, is she really on the stand because she wants to tell the truth and is telling the truth now, or is she on the stand because she has a lot to gain? And those letters seem to try to be an effort to get at that mindset.
Ellison Barber watching all of it. Ellison, thank you very much for that update. Also tonight, if you have missed out on tickets for next month's Winter Olympics, you can sign up for a chance at the one after that, one that's closer to home, the 2028 Summer Games in L.A. Right now, you got fans rushing to sign up for the ticket lottery, which opened in just the last couple of hours. Organizers say they're planning to release like 14 million tickets for the L.A. Olympics and for the Paralympics. Camila Bernal joins us now. And Camila, sources close to our newsroom tell me there was some frustration getting in this ticket line today. But here's the deal. It's like any lottery. Even if you're able to get in and get the lottery, you're not guaranteed a ticket, right?
You're not, but at least we have a chance, and at least we're all trying.
There's a chance.
And exactly. And everybody tried at 7 in the morning local time when it first opened. So I think so many people tried to log on right away that it took them an hour in some cases to try to get registered for these tickets. For me, I waited about 2 hours, and it took me about 30 minutes. I recently talked to someone in the newsroom that was like, it took me 5 minutes. So as the enthusiasm of 7 in the morning dies down, you may be able to register a lot easier. You log in, and then once you put your name and your date of birth, you're able to choose which sports you prefer. Hopefully we're able to get those tickets. The question is, will we? We don't know from organizers how much every ticket that's going to be made available is going to be and which tickets we're actually going to be able to purchase. All we know is you have from now until March 18th to register for this draw. And then they will have this drop, which will be randomly selected. You'll have a random different time slot. And hopefully, maybe it's me who gets the opportunity to do that, and I'll log on and I'll be able to buy my tickets.
There's also this like a geographic bonus, if you will, depending on where you're from, certain states.
Yes, so they really want the locals to be able to go to the games. So if you're in Los Angeles, if you're in the Oklahoma City area, you are going to be able to get sort of this early bird drop. So you still have to register for the draw. You still have to be lucky enough to get selected, and then you'll be able to purchase these tickets a little bit sooner than the rest of the world. So again, just register, whether you're in LA or not, just register so that you can at least have the chance. They're going to release 1 million tickets for just $28. They want to make it so that it's accessible to people. But the rest of the tickets will likely be a little bit pricier. We don't know, again, exactly how much they're going to be. We're waiting for a lot of these questions to be answered. But again, we're just all keeping our fingers crossed.
There you go. Mine too for you. Thank you, Camila. If you need your Olympic fix sooner than that, of course. Did you know that we are airing the Olympic Games right here on NBC? NBC Peacock starting February 6th. We are getting closer and closer to it. It's all very exciting. To tonight's Original Now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight we're taking a look down Fifth Avenue at Saks as one of the legendary stores in luxury retail files for Chapter 11 today because of a laundry list of challenges for Saks Fifth Avenue last year. From acquiring a rival brand to competing with the digital marketplace, like meaning people online, shoppers have really seemed to shift away from the iconic department store. Our Christine Romans is taking a closer look.
Saks, a pinnacle of luxury on swanky Fifth Avenue, now dressing for bankruptcy court. Saks Global, owner of Saks Fifth Avenue, Neiman Marcus, and Bergdorf Goodman, filing for Chapter 11.
Oh, sad news.
It's iconic, you know, it's part of New York to me as far as shopping goes.
From television.
I got an interview. Where? Saks Fifth Avenue.
To pop culture.
Nobody hates Saks.
Saks became shorthand for status and fashion since opening its flagship store in New York City more than a century ago.
It's shopping time on Main Street, USA.
But Saks maxed out its own credit card. About a year ago, Saks bought rival Neiman Marcus in a blockbuster deal, putting it in about $2.6 billion of debt.
You had too much debt, you couldn't pay your bills, and now they have to figure their way out of this
in a new format.
Of course, spending has changed from storefronts to computers and phones.
You can get everything online, etc. Really does change the fabric of our sort of day-to-day existence.
The company teaming up with Amazon last April to launch a luxury online storefront, but perhaps too little, too late.
That was inconsequential to what's happening with this Chapter 11 filing.
So now what? Saks saying it's evaluating its operational footprint where it has the greatest long-term potential and assuring loyal customers stores will stay open for now after securing a $1.75 billion financial package and appointing a new CEO. The trouble at Saks would appear at odds with what has become known as the K-shaped economy, where wealthy consumers are doing fine and everyone else pulling back. But for Saks, it's not that simple.
The Saks bankruptcy isn't really about luxury declining. It's about the department store model overall struggling. Department stores really used to be the gateway to luxury, and today they're kind of the middleman that luxury brands no longer need.
In fact, the luxury market is recovering after some setbacks from price hikes and tariffs. Louis Vuitton and Christian Dior parent LVMH reported slight growth last year. While Saks doesn't report its quarterly earnings as a private company, third-party analysts at Bloomberg Second Measure say sales at Saks have been down double digits almost every quarter for the last 2 years. Saks wouldn't verify those numbers.
LVMH is really doing well where department stores like Saks have struggled because it owns the brand and the customer experience. So when a brand sells direct, they can control everything from the pricing, the storytelling, the data, and that is incredibly valuable right now for a brand.
What a shame coming to a flagship department store has somehow lost its currencies.
At the end of the day, no matter how fancy, Saks is a department store in a new world of shopping. Christine Romans, NBC News.
Still ahead for us here on the show, you are not going to believe what Matthew McConaughey is doing now. We've got to look at that coming up after the break. So there's this landmark moment, very interesting one, in the battle between celebrities and AI, with one star taking a new approach to try to prevent deepfakes and bad imitations. We're talking about Matthew McConaughey, who says he is trademarking himself. Matthew McConaughey, TM, trying to stop people from manipulating his face and voice, a face and voice behind some pretty iconic moments.
All right, all right, all right. Name of the game, move the money from your client's pocket into your pocket.
Well, we used to look up in the sky and wonder at our place in the stars. Now we just look down and worry about our place in the dirt.
Some iconic McConaughey lines there. He's now telling the Wall Street Journal that he wants to know that when his voice or likeness is used, it's because he's signed off on it, that he approved it. He said, we want to create a clear perimeter around consent in the AI world. And that part about him signing off is key here, because he's also investing in AI. He's partnering with a voice cloning company, 11 Labs, that lets people license famous voices for like ads or whatever. Morgan Chesky is following this one for us. It feels a lot like, and we've covered McConaughey's moves on this before, it feels like he is trying to get out in front of this technology that is, like, in the last couple of years, kind of taken over everything, including Hollywood.
Hallie, is moving so incredibly quickly that I think everyone is doing the best they can to try to stay at the forefront of it. And I just walked away from an interview with one of the attorneys that worked with McConaughey on creating this trademark. And I asked him, is one of the motivating factors here because government laws are slow at this point in time? He says, absolutely, that's something they had to take into consideration. That's one of the reasons I wanted to be proactive and get this trademark filed. It was interesting, Hallie, when I asked him, what legally constitutes, this protected area of Matthew McConaughey, especially with his voice. He said it's not just the voice, it's the cadence, it's the Texas twang, it's the way in which he puts words together. All of that falls under this trademark that was recently approved by the Trademark Office. And I want you to hear specifically from an AI expert just on where they land as this conversation continues. Take a listen.
We have this marvelous technology that can learn so much from us. But on the other hand, we have people who want to use it to pretend. To pretend to be a CEO, to pretend to be a CFO, to pretend to be Matthew McConaughey. And that is the place where we've got to put stakes in the ground.
Now, that expert makes a good point here, Hallie, into kind of drawing the line from, what AI can learn from someone whose work is out there and what's prohibited to them going forward, because all of this is still very much a moving target here, Hallie.
The other stars have trademarked. I mean, Matthew McConaughey's trademarking like himself. I mean, which is part of what's so interesting here: his face, his voice, his image, etc. Other stars have trademarked maybe a catchphrase, right? Like parts of their stuff. But do you see this becoming the new norm moving forward?
I think until, at least according to his attorney, Hallie, until the government laws catch up, he said expect to see more stars, more celebrities do this. And it did bring up an interesting question here, Hallie. And I asked him, because Matthew McConaughey has the means, has the resources in order to, file for this trademark, does that put a lesser celebrity or an average American, such as myself, at a greater disadvantage when it comes when it comes to protecting oneself from being copied or cloned or taken advantage of in some commercial sense by artificial intelligence? And he says that's certainly a gray area that lawmakers are going to have to take a very close look at here.
Morgan Chesky, man, it's fascinating. It's a whole new world. But, Morgan Chesky TM. We'll see if that's in the works for you anytime soon. Appreciate you. Thanks, pal.
Thanks,
That does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more coverage picking up right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.